Tremendous anticipation here at the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron as the Schneider 49er series moves from Perth to Brisbane. And the big news is that Australia's current world champion, Chris Nicholson, and crew Ed Smythe are competing in the series for the first time. The three top Aussie crews face big challenges from the United States, Great Britain, New Zealand and France. So stand by for some riveting action right here on Waterloo Bay.
Well, I think Julian Bethwaite hit it right finally with this boat. It's a fantastic boat, great balance, really good feel, and it's fast. It's definitely a step down from the 18-footer, but makes it a lot easier with two people logistically, and the boat itself doesn't break as much, and it's probably a lot less expensive than the 18-footers were. But hell, it's great.
It's a fantastic fleet here in Brisbane. Smith's Kodak Express leads after the qualifying Adam Bichel, Marc Ardenneau of France, and skilled Chris Nicholson. But very much an international fleet. Entries from Finland, Great Britain, Switzerland, and also Denmark. I believe this is the best 49er fleet we've ever seen, Rob Brown.
It certainly is, and this is a course these guys will have to contend with today. 800 metres top to bottom. They round the top mark, set their spinnakers down to the bottom mark, and have the choice of two bottom marks to round, 2 laps of the course, and a spinnaker run to the finish.
Yes, well, with the two bottom marks, we have the prospect of split tacks, but we're set for the start now. And it looks as though a couple may be in trouble early as we're closing on the start.
They're very close to the start line, and then there's very light conditions. But the whole thing here, Gordon, is that they've got to hit the line with pace as the gun goes. With 5 seconds to go, they're very, very close to the line.
There's skilled Chris Nicholson at the start boat end, and certainly we have one over early.
Yes, I think it might be the Irish, but Adrian Carlin's down on the start boat. Let's go to her now.
That was a great start there. The Irish looked like they might be over the line. There was a gun for an individual recall. Chris Nicholson got away well there at the favoured end of the line at the boat end. We've got a really nice nor'easter here now, 8 to 10 knots. It's going to slowly build over the afternoon. But that was a really good start for Chris. Adam didn't get away so well. Adam Bichel, Australia, he's down at the pin end and he looks a bit soft down there. I'd put my money at the moment on the right-hand side of the course because Chris is protecting that side. There's a little bit of run-out tide, but you won't see many shifts today, probably only 5-degree shifts.
Yes, well, as Adrian said, he wants this right-hand side of the course, Rob. Phil Airy, the Kiwi, also began very well, and it looks as though the Boyds were squeezed out early and had to tack across the stern of Skill.
Yeah, the reason why these guys have tacked out is because they've got a bad start and they're clearing their air. And of course, the important thing is to eliminate the number of tacks up these beats and also down the spinnaker runs.
We're on board Silent Night Beds with the Kiwi combination. Dan Slater, the skipper, and they're in no man's land at the moment. And there's the Swiss entry, doing quite well.
And the Swiss entry has to give way there. Port tack boat has to give way to starboard tack boat. And they're getting very close to the ley line also. But let's have a look at this again. The orange boat coming in on port can either tack and give way to the starboard tack boat or pull away behind and continue on.
So that front boat with the wind on the starboard side, the right-hand side of the boat, having right of way. And they're skilled. Now skilled is coming up the centre of the course here. And are they going to be able to get to that top mark in first place?
Okay, they're coming towards the top mark. This is the convergence of the skiffs that have gone out to the left and the right-hand side, and the boats you're looking at now are coming in from that left-hand side of the course.
Paul Brotherton and Neil McDonald, the Great Britain combination, just behind Skilled. But it's going to be a logjam, Rob, at the top mark.
These are the boats coming in from the right-hand side of the course.
I'll get it.
Silent Night Beds, just on board with Nathan Hanley and Dan Slater.
Are we done? Yeah.
They reckon they can make that top mark. Going into the tack now.
Okay.
Very important to keep the wings out of the water. The new weight gets onto the wing and the boat accelerates. That's a nice tack from the Kiwis.
Yeah. There's the Boyd brothers, John and Gary.
That was a great tack. Did you see how the boat just accelerated there? They're on starboard. That's the orange insignia. And Gyro Post just happened to pull round behind the back of the Boys. And so they believe they're on the ley line to the top mark. And Skilled coming in there. This is very dangerous for Skilled. Chris Nicholson's made a big mistake here.
He's also gone overboard too, but scrambled back on very quickly.
Oh, that's not like Chris Nicholson. I've never seen him do that before.
Yep, yep.
So he came into the mark, Rob, without right of way. He couldn't clear those two other converging yachts. And what happens now?
Well, what's he doing?
He's definitely in the wrong. He has to do a 360-degree turn. Now you see here, Kodak Express has got him on starboard. He's tried to do a dummy tack or just to keep avoiding a collision. He's in all sorts of trouble.
It's almost as though he jumped overboard to stall the boat.
In irons there, he's backing the boom, trying to keep the boat back onto starboard tack. They'll have to do a 360-degree turn. That's the race for the world champion.
That's an absolute disaster for Chris Nicholson in his debut in this Schneider 49er series. So let's just recap. Morgan Larson, the United States, ahead of Adam Beeshaw. The Boyd brothers in third. Phil Airy, the Kiwi, has done well. But we've seen these leading skiffs now split jibes going downwind.
Well, half the fleet's gone out to the left. Here's Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall. They are race leaders, and that's them in the middle of the screen, heading back towards the right-hand side of the course. Adam Beechel, the yellow spinnaker, the Boyd brothers, the white spinnaker. This is on board with the Kiwis, Nathan Hanley and Dan Slater. They've jibed back, heading down towards the start-finish gate. You can see Nathan Hanley there, hanging onto the spinnaker sheet, looking up at the luff of the spinnaker, trying to get maximum speed out of the boat. And also, while you're doing all this, you're going to be looking around for other skiffs and playing the tactics. This is the leaders. Morgan Larson there, just having a bit of a look. You think that's the right angle, going into the jibe now. Nice balance there. Nice weight distribution, and they're heading down towards the start-finish gate.
And look at USA. Morgan Larson, here's his first regatta, and he's really come through. He picked it right-hand side, and he's come through the gate first. He's really picked up a big lead now. Actually, he's well ahead of Adam and the Boyds in third place. And there come the Germans. The Germans hit hard left.
Yes, former 18-foot Grand Prix champion, Adrian Carlin, giving us a graphic report as they went through that start-finish gate. But the United States, Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall.
Our strengths on the course, I guess, would be just kind of conservative tactics. Kevin Hall, he's excellent crew and really methodical about the tactics on the boat, and he does a great job of just picking ourselves through the fleet and not doing anything too risky.
And certainly they're doing a great job out there. He says conservative, but they're smart tactics. There's not very many wind shifts out there, Gordon, and they're playing the middle of the course, and they're staying between the bottom mark and their opposition, which is very sound tactics.
And included in that opposition is Skill, back in about 9th place at the moment.
In this type of sailing, you want to eliminate the number of jibes you do down the downwind, and it really depends on the traffic at the top mark, whether you jibe out or continue down on the starboard jibe. So really, what's happening here is there's not very many wind shifts. We've got Morgan Larson with the blue spinnaker doing a jibe drop, and he'll head out to the right-hand side. We've got Adam Beechel and Teague Sigzowski coming down here. They're going to go out to the left-hand side. So really it is a bit of a gamble here. The Boyd brothers have just jibed. They want that right-hand side, but they're going to have to contend with this group of all these skiffs coming down here. They're going to have to sail through all that bad, disturbed air. So this is a bit of a gamble by Adam Beechel.
So Morgan Larson, the United States, in first place. The Boyd brothers up into third behind Adam Beechel, as Beechel goes to the left-hand side of the course. So the Americans, one of the very hot boats for Sydney 2000 in this Schneider 49er International Regatta class, Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall.
Chris Nicholson actually believes that these two guys are the hottest contender from overseas, and really everyone expected that the Australians were going to dominate this class. We've got 6 out of 20 entrants here actually coming from Australia. I've got a very strong international field, and the world champion back in the pack at the moment.
Well, the Americans cut their teeth, Rob, in the 18-footers on more business systems. Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, they were introduced to the sport by the McKee brothers. Another hot 49er crew, not here though in Brisbane.
Yeah, Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall did a great job in the 18-foot skiffs. Here they are at the top mark, and they've opened up quite a considerable lead on the rest of the fleet. And I know for a fact that Morgan and Kevin will be enjoying this.
Well, there's the Boyds in second place, and this margin's going to be out to around 15 seconds, a little bit more.
What generally happens here, Gordon, is the leader clears out and the rest fight for their position, and they just grind each other down. More tacks, more jibes. Nice jibe set on the Boyds there. They want to go out to that right-hand side of the course. And here we've got
Ian Barker and Simon Hiscox will be third around, the Great Britain crew, closely followed by the Kiwis, and that's Adam Bieshel.
Wow, second on the first lap through the gate, and now he's dropped back to fifth. One little indecision in this hot competition. It's going to be very difficult for Adam and Teague to get back into this one.
Silent Night Beds behind Adam Bieshel, and looking further down the course I can see Skilled back in about 8th or 9th position.
And Adam Bieshel's decided to jibe out to that right-hand side of the course. There's the Kiwis going around on board Silent Night Beds.
Hard, you're on.
Plenty of encouragement behind Dan Slater.
Okay, you're right.
So there's the leaders. Morgan Larson, Kevin Hall, that's Phil Airy with the green spinnaker just behind them. But they're certainly enjoying a nice lead at this point in time. You can see there, they're bending their legs, just trying to keep the wings out of the water. There's the Boyd brothers jibing back through the start-finishing gate. So they're in second position. And you can see the yellow spinnaker just in behind the Boyd brothers there. Adam Bieshel and Teague Sikowski in fifth position. On board with the Boyds. Back to our race leader.
Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall. They campaigned for a couple of years on the match racing circuit. Runners up to Russell Coots in the San Francisco Brute Cup. Sail number 488 is Paul Brotherton and Neil MacDonald from Great Britain, closest. And they're having a terrific go with the Danes, Michael Peterson and Niels Floor.
And here we are with
Ian Barker.
They're heading down towards the bottom mark, a choice of 2 marks. And I think you'll find everyone will go to that right-hand side. We can see here Morgan Larson, Kevin Hall working overtime, getting that spinnaker, sucking it down the spinnaker tube, rounding the mark and heading out towards that right-hand side of the course.
And they have a commanding lead.
They've done well, Gordon. Their tactics have been very sound, but it's really easy to sail well when you're out in front. You've got clear air, you've got first use of all the wind shifts. The Boyd brothers there with the white spinnaker in second position. They're heading down towards this bottom mark, but look at the lead.
Well, it was 16 seconds at the top mark, and they've almost doubled that.
I'll do a jibe drop here. Gary and John Boyd. This is a good result for these guys.
Okay, you're right.
Rated number 2 in Australia, Gary and John Boyd from Lake Macquarie. They've done their time in the 18-footers. But their tactics and the way they're handling themselves in this high-quality fleet is definitely first class.
Yes, well, they cut their teeth on Lake Macquarie, the Belmont area.
I can tell you what.
Third around there is Ian Barker
eh?
and Simon Hiscox from Great Britain. And fourth is Phil Airy from New Zealand and Grant Griffiths in the bow.
Adam Bieshel in 5th place.
So they're running out of time to get back into this race. Adam Bieshel, the top qualifier coming into this regatta.
Shoot.
And the Kiwis deciding to go out to the left-hand side of the course, which is a bit of a risk. The right-hand side of the course is paid.
Kiwis back in 6th position at the moment behind Bieshel.
Breeze looks like it's increased somewhat. I'd say it's probably up around 12, 13 knots at this point in time.
Yep.
And there's Skilled back in 8th position.
That first mark rounding certainly has cost him, and not the start he's wanted in this series. Everyone's fearful of Chris Nicholson. He's won the 2 World Championships sailed to date. And I know Chris, he'll be very angry with himself, and certainly he'll be very keen to make amends.
10 overseas entries in this final series of the Schneider 49er regatta. The second regatta of the series.
And what a racing schedule these crews have got ahead of them. Straight after this series, they're down to Sydney to sail the Sydney Regatta, and then the big championship down in Melbourne, the 1999 Worlds. We're within 6 months of actually selecting our crews for the 49 representative. So these races are very important to establish their position.
Yes, it will all happen on Sydney Harbour in 2000, and we have most of the top crews here competing in this Brisbane regatta, all building to those worlds on Port Phillip Bay.
Rounding the mark for the last time, Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall from the United States doing a jibe set. Nice weight distribution, nice acceleration, great spinnaker set. They're cruising at the moment.
Morgan Larson, bronze medalist in the Pan Am Games, celebrated United States yachtsman. The Boyds trailing by over 30 seconds as they approach the top mark. And I wonder, Rob Brown, if this signals a new order. Chris Nicholson has had a disastrous first race here, and Morgan Larson from the United States, the overseas entry, has done a terrific job.
Well, it certainly would get the hopes up of other crews to see Chris back there, but he was in first or second position when he made that fatal error of trying to come in on port at the first mark. I know Chris Nicholson, and all these guys know him. He's too good for that. I wouldn't write him off at this stage.
So the Boyd brothers round in second place, and they want to consolidate in this final dash to the finish in this opening race of the Schneider 49er Brisbane Regatta.
It's great to see this competition coming up against Chris Nicholson. Like Adam Beashel has dominated the last two series, and he really has spent probably the least time in this class than most of these crews out there. So it's great to see all this great competition.
So the Boyds chasing hard, but it's a forlorn task because Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, here our lead boat in this opening race of the Brisbane Regatta, have made it a one-act affair.
Jibing now. This is their last jibe, heading in towards the finish. They'll be having a nice little look round, enjoying the afternoon. There's the gap, a huge lead to the Americans, and what a confidence booster for these two great sailors.
And the way it's shaping may be a bit of a worry for the Australian supporters. It's United States first. The Boyds will get second as we approach the finish line, and Great Britain in third place at the moment.
Great effort by Morgan Larson, Kevin Hall. The thing you've got to ask yourself here is, okay, they had good tactics, but I think they look quick out there as well. Like the Boyd brothers have been pressing them, but you can see the deltas at each mark, the American just slowly getting further and further ahead.
Well, they had plenty of clear air out there, and they were on the right side of the course at every turn.
Maybe these guys here have gone a little bit defensive and trying to protect their second position. But as you can see there's quite a considerable gap between second and third. So I think the Americans are quick. The work they've been doing over in the States has certainly paid off. They've been training with McKee brothers, who aren't sailing this regatta, but certainly will be there in contention.
So the Boyds across in second place, just ahead of Ian Barker of Great Britain. Phil Airy, the Kiwi, in fourth position, and then Adam Beashel from Australia will have to be satisfied with fifth. A great start for Morgan Larson, and really all the action, Rob, was at that top mark first time.
Certainly was. Chris Nicholson was first to the top mark. He entered the no-tack zone on port, tried to avoid collisions, got in all sorts of trouble, and that was the race for the world champion.
We'll be back to wrap up with the official results after this break. Recapping official results, race 1, Morgan Larson, United States, the Boyd brothers in second, Ian Barker, Great Britain third, Phil Airy, New Zealand fourth, Adam Beashel in fifth, Ardenneau of France in sixth, and Skill back in seventh. And looking at the second half of the fleet, well, the European entries are struggling at the moment. This week's 49er Skipper Profile is brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. The ever-colourful David Witt and his Nokia boat have a long and successful 18-footer skiff history. So his move to the Olympic 49er skiff wasn't a big surprise. What was, though, is the fact that he and his crew of Rod Howell won't be wearing the green and gold when they sail in Sydney 2000.
So Woody, tell me how the Cook Islands representation came about.
I decided I wanted to do a 49er campaign, and I decided that, I don't know, it was just all going to be a bit hard because we're starting so late. The Chris Nicholsons and the Adam Beeshes of this world have been training already for over 12 months. Nico's been training for 2 years. So I didn't think we'd be able to catch up to that in time for the selection, but hopefully in time for the games. So basically we had to find another country. We're actually going to compete in the Cook Island National 49er Championship in March. At the moment we're the only ones in it, but hopefully we might be able to take a couple more.
Do you see yourself as being a genuine contender to win a gold medal in the Olympics?
We will be the best chance the Cook Islands ever had of winning an Olympic medal. And we should get a colour. Yeah. The problem is we've only just started. Everyone's sort of written us off, but that's okay because we haven't done any training. You know, we've got a long way to go, and we've got the right people backing us, and we've got, you know, the right place to train in Aitutaki.
Sailing uses a lot of jargon, and one of the most confusing, I reckon, is this term called sheets, because sheets just really mean ropes. And these are the things that are used to control the sails. You've got the main sheet, you've got the jib sheet, and you've got the spinnaker sheet. You've also got, at the end, a lot of mess, and we just call this spaghetti. So it's really important to keep a tidy house, and around all those marks, make sure that none of them get knotted and stop the flow of the sails coming in and out.
This week's Olympic class profile is the two-handed men's 470. Nathan Wilmot and Daniel Smith are our youngest hopes for a sailing medal come the Games in Sydney. In fact, skipper Nathan has just celebrated his 19th birthday and has the bloodlines that make a champion.
Got into the sport really through my parents. Dad sort of done a couple of Olympic Games and pushed me in that direction, just kept going from there.
That's been a family thing for a while.
Yeah, it's always been in the family. The whole family sailed since we're old enough to, I guess. We've come a long way in the last year, been doing a lot of training, had a trip to Europe already and had a good result over there. We're getting there pretty well now. I know, yeah, we haven't left a lot of time for ourselves, but I think it's coming along well, and because we're young, we're learning a lot quicker than most people that have been around for a while.
Yeah, we used to race against each other, and then we decided to just join up and team up and try and get to the game. So yeah, we've only been sailing this for a year together, but we've sailed on and off together a bit before that. In the junior class of 420, we did a World Championships together and enjoyed it and did really well, so we thought, hey, we could have a crack at it then. Well, it's hard because I do the spinnaker and jib, the front things, but the main thing is working as a team and information feeding back and forwards. So I tell him things and he tells me things.
Do the older blokes, as you're mounting your challenge to get to the Olympics, think you're kidding, or do they are a bit wary of the young guys snapping at their heels?
I think they're getting used to it now. Like, we won the Down Under Series last year and we've been the top Australian now for a little while, so the guys here sort of, yeah, they're good. No one really noticed the young age or anything. It's all just, we're just sailing against each other.
Careful here.
And so now we go to race
25.
2, Waterloo Bay here in Brisbane. Breeze has picked up a little with me in commentary.
British.
Former world
bit
18-foot skiff
here.
champion 3 times, Rob Brown.
Sitting on the line.
15. And we're seeing great boat control here as they approach the start with less than 10 seconds to go. They've got to hit the line with pace as the gun goes.
6,
Couple very close to the line, could be early.
Adam
3.
Beechel and John Boyd towards the middle of the line.
Great start there by the Budston brothers. They could be very, very close to the line.
Here's Adrian Carlin.
That's a great start there. That's a great start from the British GBR1. They've called back a couple of boats. We don't know who they are yet. It's a beautiful southeast breeze. It's the top mark set at 100. You can see both Beechel and the Boyds were forced to tack off out to the right. They didn't get such a great start, but it was a fairly even start line.
And also, Rob, Nicorette had a very good start at the pin end of the line as well.
Gordon, we've just been informed that the Great Britain entry, the Budgeson brothers, are over. So that's a disastrous start for them.
So working into this sou'easter. This is up the first mark. We have 2.5 laps of the course.
Got to get back.
Very choppy conditions. You can see the boats there, a lot of spray there, trying to get the bow out to keep the maximum speed on. And we're on board Nicorette. You can hear the crews there breathing heavily.
Crikey.
The Boyd brothers there, you can see Gary just having a bit of a look around, having a look at his opposition. And if that boat above them, Adam Beashall, advances anymore, they'll be getting disturbed air off the sail, and you'll find the Boys will probably have to tack out. They're probably looking at their options now. The Beashall certainly has rolled over the top of them.
Proverbial, but
the breeze is up probably around 12, 13 knots. Beashall's attacked, so they're on the way to the top mark.
Down there.
And here's Nicorette, Grant Rollerson there with the head cam on board, giving us those great vision. Adam Beashall and Teague Sigzowski have been dominating the series to date. They were the top qualifier coming into this series. And as you can see, Adam Beashall there with the yellow Smith's Kodak Express Insignia is well back in this race. He wouldn't like this position at the moment.
Well, that means the Boyds are in big trouble as well. So Beashall and the Boyds, 2 of the top 3 Australian crews, are struggling up this first windward beat.
You see the crew there trying to keep the boat as flat as possible, keeping that bow just in the water. It's a little bit choppy, so the crews will be a little bit further back on the wings. So that bow just kisses the waves.
And Morgan Larson.
That boat has to pull away right behind there. Oh, that was very close. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a protest flag on that one. And this boat has to tack. He's on port tack as well.
Skilled Chris Nicholson. After that mishap, top mark, first race, around clearly in first position. Silent Night Beds in second place.
On board there, you can see Nathan Hanley pulling that black spinnaker up. Bit of a delayed set on this particular skiff. And here's Chris Nicholson. This is where he likes to be, out in front. He's got the bit between his teeth in this race.
Morgan Larson, United States, was third round, followed by the Danes, Michael Peterson and Niels Flohr.
As they're charging down, they have not jibed. They're heading out to the left-hand side of the course.
2 boats behind us. Got 2 boat lengths clear of them now.
On board Nicorette. The Boyd brothers in a bit of trouble there. They must keep clear of gyro posts. If they happen to have any sort of contact, they'll incur an infringement. So Gary Boyd has actually dropped the spinnaker sheet. You can see it flapping there in the background. Might be a problem on board the Boyd skiff.
Well, this is where Chris Nicholson likes to be. Out in front, dictating, having a quick look over his shoulder to see where Silent Night Beds is. They're trying to attack. But this breeze has certainly freshened now. We have more white caps, and Skilled leads the way.
Okay, left-hand side's paying here. This is a great race. You can see Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe, a top Australian team, have done very well. They went left off the beat, and now they've gone around the top mark, and they're going left down the course as well.
Yes, on-water comments coming from Adrian Carlin, former Grand Prix 18-foot skiff champion and celebrated round-the-world yachtswoman.
But Nico and Ed Smythe are doing a great job here. You can see Chris having a look around, evaluating the situation. Cool as a cucumber, this guy. Loves being out in front and loves looking behind, and every now and again you get a little smile from Nico, which means that he's very aggressive and he's totally in control.
This is where we are at the moment, coming back through the start-finishing gate. Adrian.
The fleet split in 2. The guys that have come out to this side of the course haven't done quite as well. You see these, here comes the top American team. They're coming in on starboard in 3rd place. Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley from New Zealand, who sailed very well in Perth, have easily got 2nd now.
Ardenau of France in 4th place at the moment. That's them going across with the blue spinnaker.
They're very slow, this particular team, just coming in, trying to avoid the committee boat. Now the way that the boats have improved up on their left-hand side, that's Adam Beashall and Teague Sigzowski. Few boats there flapping their spinnakers to try and get through the gate. Nick O'Hare and Ed Smythe doing a nosedive. The spinnaker's in the water.
Straight ahead, by the way.
They just got caught up in those waves trying to jibe. So that's time lost.
Adam Bieshel through in 8th position, Rob. They've got plenty of ground to make up.
Just here we have a look at the going into the jibe. The boat's not flat. They're trying to jibe in a wave. The spinnaker digging in. They were very lucky not to nosedive completely there. Good steering to get the boat under control. You've got to build the speed up before you attempt another jibe. And we're back live with skilled Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe. Approaching the bottom mark. They've got the choice of the two marks, Gordon. And Chris Nicholson looks like he's going to do a jibe drop, so he wants to come around this mark, leaving it to his left, and head out to the right-hand side of the course, which is contrary to what paid off in the first beat.
Morgan Larson looks as though he wants that left-hand side of the course, so he's going to be around that bottom mark in second place. Silent Night Bets following our race leader, Chris Nicholson.
And look at the convergence at this bottom mark. We've got Dan Schneider and Nathan Hanley coming out here following Skilled. And all these boats coming in on starboard. There's the convergence. Work that one out.
Sweet.
Few exchange of communication there. Adam Bieshel and Teague Siglowski getting around cleanly, heading out towards the left. On board Nicorette.
I don't know if France around in 4th place, and looking back down the course, I think the Boyds have about 12 skiffs in front of them at the moment.
And there's the leader. So, Chris Nicholson, that nosedive proved very costly. As they come back towards the start-finish gate.
Well, great drama here, Rob, because Skilled on this right-hand side of the course appeared to be in control of the race, but Morgan Larson looks as though he's picked up a big lift on the left-hand side. Adrian.
Morgan Larson, Kevin Hall, here they are, first place. Don't know what Chris Nicholson's done. He's gone out to the wrong side of the course. Morgan and Kevin went out to the left side and gained. They're now back in first position. Look at them sailing there beautifully, comfortably, relaxed on the trapeze. It's very important that they don't lose their cool.
Well, it's really here the two favoured crews for Sydney 2000 at this point. You have Skilled, Chris Nicholson, and also Morgan Larson, who's in the lead from the United States. Adam Bieshel back in about 4th place. Silent Night Bets is 3rd.
You can see how the crew have interlocked there, very close together to get the best airflow over their bodies, a bit like the cycling. And that's the distance. You know, there's probably about 1 or 2 boat lengths difference as they tack, but Chris Nicholson's received disturbed there all the way through there, and look at the gap.
I'll tell you what, Brotherton's
Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, the blue spinnaker.
have an issue with him.
So there we go, 10 seconds. Let's see if Chris Nicholson will follow the leader or take that option of jibing out and heading back towards the centre of the course, hoping to pick up a wind
Yeah,
shift.
he's got us.
3rd,
Yeah.
Silent Night Beds.
I know we're still about.
So they still believe that this left-hand side of the course is favoured. Both skiffs
Do you see him?
continuing down on this reach and jibing now, heading back towards the centre of the course and the start-finish gate.
Silent Night Beds clearly in 3rd position at the moment. The French into 4th place. And sail number 504, the Danes, having a good one.
Now this is interesting. Chris Nicholson has been allowed to continue on further. Morgan Larson believes there's more pressure in the middle of the course. He jibed first, so really he isn't defensive at all. This is on board Nicorette. Going for the spinnaker, that's pulling the halyard up. At the same time it pulls the spinnaker pole out. The end of projection out of the front of the boat.
This are these guys and they are to us.
Back to the leaders. Jibing now to go through the gate. Beautiful control there. Both wings clear of the water. Boat accelerates out of the jibe.
This is a really, really good race between Morgan and Chris. Morgan's been really dominating, but not now. This is where it comes up to who's going to cross who. It's going to be very close. No, Morgan's just got him. Just got him. Morgan goes through on starboard. This breeze is lightening off a little bit here. It's about 8 to 10 knots. Chris is going to just leave his jibe a little bit late to come through the gate to see if he can't get just a little better gust of breeze and get through that gate before Morgan. He wants to set himself up so he's inside him down at the bottom mark.
Thanks, Adrian. They're great comments. And what's standing out here, I've raced against both of these crews in the 18-foot skiffs, and they're backing their own judgment. They're not covering each other. They think they can pick the breeze better than the other, and this is really just showing the quality of these two crews.
Well, Morgan Larson wants the right-hand side.
And Chris Nicholson has definitely closed here. Morgan on port tack has to give way. Bit of indecision there by the Americans. And here comes the Aussies. Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe definitely handling this little battle. And they're in front. This is where Nico likes to be.
Big psychological points there for Chris Nicholson. They have outmaneuvered the Americans and they're back in the lead now. So Australia first, United States second, the Kiwis third, France in fourth.
A little bit of indecision on board the American boat there. They didn't. I thought they were going to go into a jibe and put one right on the face of the Australians, but a little bit of hesitation, and you just can't do that at this level of racing.
Yeah.
So Skilled looks as though they'll round in first place.
See Silent Knight's
ahead
really
of Morgan Larson. Silent Night Beds.
They're jibe now, heading down towards the bottom of the course. The choice of two marks, and surely this time they'll go out to the left-hand side. That's certainly been paying. This is third position. Dan Slater and Nathan Hanley from New Zealand. You can see Chris Nicholson there. I think they've jibed a little early.
on starboard.
You can see Chris Nicholson in there. That's the mark they want to go around. They're going to keep that on their right-hand side. So they're going to do a jibe drop, and then they'll have to do another jibe as well.
The budgies.
They've got hit the boat, two boat length circle first. Very, very slow, running square. Nothing in this race. Now Morgan will try and spin the boat up inside Skill to try and get clear air, and he has achieved that purely because he had more speed coming around the mark.
And the good news is that Silent Night Beds in third place there has made up ground after that indecision there by Skill.
As Dan Slater here comes in, and I think you'll find that he'll do a jibe drop as he's doing now, and he'll head out towards that left-hand side of the course. You'd have to be a brave person to go out to the right. It hasn't paid at all in this race.
Well, Dan Slater looks as though he's hot to trot here, Rob. He's got a sniff here, and he's going for it.
Back with the race leader, Chris Nicholson, Ed Smythe, tacking. The waves are up. I think the breeze has increased again. Adrian said it was around 10 knots. Looks like it's kicked back in again.
There's the French in fourth place.
Chris has given Morgan Larson a little bit of air here. He hasn't slammed one on him. He's got clear air around the front of Skill as they're heading back towards the start-finishing gate.
Silent Night Beds. Dan Slater, the 22-year-old Aucklander, and his crew. Nathan Handley, 25-year-old, also from Auckland.
As they approach the start-finishing gate, Skill skippered by Chris Nicholson in control of this crew. The second-seeded Americans, Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, as we see Silent Night Beds tacking back towards the centre of the course to go through the start-finishing gate. This is the Americans. Kevin Hall having a look round, feeding that vital information back to his skipper Morgan. You've got to keep your heads out of the boat, Gordon. You know, there's all these activity on board. You've got to keep the boat upright.
I don't know,
but there's the crossing. Skill going through and tacking right on the face of the Americans.
And they do have to keep an eye on Silent Night Beds as well. They seem to be picking the lifts at the moment. They are back in third position, but Skilled, dictating terms out in front in race 2 of this Schneider 49er regatta.
How much further?
Very important to keep these boats sailing at maximum speed and keeping them dead upright. You can see both crews interlocked, keeping the airflow over the crew, very important. Well, there's the distance between them. I've been in these situations racing against Chris. He's a very cool, collected customer. And here's Adam Beashall, the top qualifier into the series, in 4th position. And he's just trying to get back into this race.
He was in 9th position after that first top mark rounding, and he's come up into 4th place. Skill just covering at the moment.
Classic cover there. The air coming off the sails of the Skill skiff, putting airflow, disturbed air back onto the sails of Kevin Hall. We call it copping gas, and they're certainly eating the air of skilled sail at the moment, but have a go at Silent Night Beds coming in from this right-hand side of the course.
Well, haven't they copped some gas? They have picked up their own private breeze out on the right-hand side,
Yeah,
and I believe they've taken the lead here, Rob.
They certainly have, Gordon, and just shows you, you can get involved in your own little private battle. And while that's happening, the rest of the fleet are saying, well, those guys are preoccupied. Let's go somewhere different. And certainly the Kiwis have done that. They're in front.
So we had a classic match racing situation with Skilled and also Morgan Larson, but the Kiwis have snuck up, and they are going to take over the lead here and round this top mark, and the sprint to the finish could be theirs.
Well, that left-hand side has been paying all day, and I thought they were going the right way out on the left-hand side, but maybe just too many tacks up that beat. They got their eye off the ball, and some new leaders, the Kiwis.
Yes, Silent Night Beds, after they crossed the start-finishing line, split tacks with the two leaders, went right out on that right-hand side of the course, and they look as though they are going to take this second race in pretty dramatic fashion after a disappointment in the first where they went for a swim.
With the breeze paying off on that right-hand side of the course, I wouldn't be surprised if an early jibe, and ever so important, picking the right angle to the line. Now, Skilled Engineering's jibe first. Has Dan Slater opened the door again for Chris Nicholson?
Well, it's going to be a very tight go. I think
This is going to be real close, Gordon. The breeze has come in from that right-hand side of the course. I think the Kiwis might have, they could have given the lead back to Skilled here.
Well, here's the finish now. You'd have to say the Kiwis have their noses in front. Nothing in it. New Zealand first. Skilled. Chris Nicholson in second place, but only an eyelash at the final dash to the finishing line.
And the distance back to third, Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, miles, but this is where Dan Slater hit the lead for the first time, and it's not a bad place to hit the front at the last mark.
Dan Slater, the former world youth champion, taking out the second race here in Brisbane from Skilled and Morgan Larson. Phil Airy of New Zealand in fourth, then the Boyd twins and Adam Bieshel in sixth place. And the second half of the fleet, well, the Europeans still struggling, and also Canada coming up into 15th place. Progressive points in the series. Morgan Larson is the front runner. The Boyd twins in second place. Phil Airy of New Zealand third, and Chris Nicholson in fourth. And they're the second half of the fleet, but it's USA leading the way.
Yeah, we've had a nice 6 weeks off and tried to work on a few things, especially our fitness and our sort of mental drive and how we can be more psyched up and sail a little more maturely, I guess is the right way to put it. And some time away has been great, and we're just happy to go sailing.
Heaps of great action on the next episode of the Schneider 49er Series. And Melbourne will host the 99 World Sailing Championships down on beautiful Port Phillip Bay. From the 6th to the 17th of January, the world's best sailors will do battle for the sport's penultimate trophy in a timely lead-up to the Olympics. More spectacular racing still to come from Brisbane. We'll see you next time. The Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron is host club for this second regatta in the Schneider 49er Series. We've been to Perth. Top Aussie skipper Adam Bieshel dominated over there. But here in Brisbane, Chris Nicholson, the world champ, has made his mark. So too has Morgan Larson from the United States. Beautiful sailing conditions as we take you onto Waterloo Bay.
Probably the most fun in a 49er is when we get a good 20-25 knots worth of breeze, and it's a nice sunny day like today and it's hot, and you've got close racing with some of the top guys in the world, going downwind with the spinnaker, and you're barely holding it together, and it's all a big fight, you know, for the finish. I mean, that's certainly a big up point.
So after 2 races in this Brisbane regatta, the big news is that Adam Bieshel, who dominated in Perth, is back in 5th position. United States leads from the Boyd twins, Filari of New Zealand in 3rd and Skilled in 4th. Rob Brown, let's look at the course.
Top to bottom course, 800 metres. They round the top mark, set their spinnakers down through the start-finishing gate, and a choice of 2 bottom marks, a work up to the top mark again, number of laps, and a spinnaker under the finish.
Well, the breeze has really kicked in here. This is going to be survival.
Southeast wind up to 18 knots. Certainly a different approach to the racing today, Gordon. Survival could come to mind. You've got silent night beds here at the top of the line next to the committee boat. Looks like a clean start to me. You've got a number of skiffs coming in on port tack that don't have right away. They're going to have to dip away behind the rest of the fleet. I heard another gun, so there's been an individual recall. You can see the mainsail's flogging inside out there. That means the breeze is gusting up, exhausting out of the headsails. You can see these boats ducking round behind the rest of the fleet. So I think what these tactics is that these boats here want the right-hand side of the course, which is generally the rule up here on Waterloo Bay.
Adrian, how did it look?
GBR1 and Switch 2, they were both OCS. That means they were over the start early. That's the second over the start early for GBR1, the top British team, and the second one for the Swiss team. Those guys have better adjust their watches.
Yes, not a happy start for the Budgeons. They must be still on Greenwich Mean Time, I think, but the Boyd starting in the middle with Skilled as well, but this breeze up to about 18 knots.
Still got half the fleet on our hip here.
That's the voice of Chris Nicholson on board Skilled. You can see how choppy Waterloo Bay gets, very shallow out here, and those waves are probably up to about half a metre, which makes sailing very difficult.
Can't see the way.
Morgan Larson out on that left-hand side. Looks to be a losing tack out there. Silent Night Beds started on the right.
Flatten it out.
And that's Skilled Engineering dipping behind that starboard tack skiff as they head back towards the middle of the course. Now it's interesting, I recall that the right-hand side is generally favoured. Chris Nicholson has come out to this left-hand side, so the convergence at the top mark, who's made the right decision?
Adam Bieshel desperate to get back into contention in this Brisbane regatta.
You can see the headsails there, very much eased to spill. It looks like these guys have overlaid on board here with Adam Bieshel and Teague Sizarski. Now all these skiffs have gone out the left-hand side, and they're coming in, they're actually reaching in, they've overlaid, so the left-hand side of the course is paved, which is contrary to what I was saying before. We get this convergence at the top mark in every race. You can see the sails well eased on all these skiffs.
I think we're going to get there before Schneider, aren't we?
So Skilled thinks he's in a pretty good position here. There's the Boyds, and there's Morgan Larson, top of your screen.
Silent Night Beds is way out on the right-hand side of the course, coming into the mark. Skilled, confident he can just get there ahead. You'll see Silent Night Beds coming into picture very shortly.
There's the top mark. Skilled will round cleanly here.
Right.
These 2 yachts, Silent Night Beds and Gyro Post on starboard. Skilled still okay there. He completed his tack.
Right. Go.
Have a go at the boats coming into that top mark. Great set on board Skilled, a little bit of a flap there. Dan Slater rolling over the top of Chris Nicholson, and they've capsized. They had the coop clear.
Bring it on. Gate straight ahead.
Look how calm and collected Nico is.
Well, I don't think the same applies to Dan Slater on Silent Night Beds. They have just blown their chance. They were in second position.
But Andy Budgeon and Ian Budgeon have just capsized the weather. Looks like they got carted off the wing in a wave. So that's the Kiwis in the tide, and also Great Britain's #1 contestants. That's the race for these guys. They're upside down now. It's not very deep out there on Waterloo Bay.
Pointing
That
on
mast
him
would
behind
nearly
us
be
too.
in the mud. And here's the replay. Dan Slater has to flap the spinnaker to avoid hitting Skilled Engineering, wound the wheel, capsized.
Behind us. Okay, we're right to go.
There's the French coming up in their wake.
Hugh Stoddard and Dan Phillips in gyro post, jibing now. That wing digs in the water. That can be very costly.
Morgan here.
You can just listen to Chris Nicholson, how
Good work.
cool he is. There's boats going everywhere, and it's just like Chris Nicholson's out on a Sunday afternoon walk. He certainly does stay calm under pressure.
Can't quite see that other gate yet.
Just talking about the jibe angle. Oh, there's the Americans. Morgan Larson, Kevin Hall. What a disaster for these guys.
The regatta leaders are in the drink.
You can see the wave conditions.
Left-hand
The
gate
breeze is
favoured.
getting up. The short chop on Waterloo Bay. I remember we were up here with the
when you're
18-foot skiffs and we had to call racing off. It got that treacherous. But Chris Nicholson would be relishing in these conditions. He's a great boat handler and he's got a great forehead, and Ed Smythe up in the front handling the spinnakers.
Skilled leading the way from gyro post.
Right down the back of the bus. Having a look at the bottom mark there. They've just Ed Smythe going into the middle of the boat. They want to ghost the boat away from the breeze so
He's
they can go out to the right-hand side.
Okay, when you're right.
Spinnaker coming down now. That was a great spinnaker run by these guys.
Okay.
Cool, calm and collected under pressure. Has even time to look round. And gyro pace. Hugh Stoddard in second position. Just looking at the trapezing technique there, you can see Teague there working the main. Adam having a bit of a look around. Not much tiller movement there, so it means the boat's perfectly balanced.
Yep.
They're a class act, these guys, but we haven't seen the results just yet.
Adam's great-grandfather Richard, first generation 18-foot skiff sailor.
I've seen Adam develop over the years, and he certainly is a very good campaigner. His father Ken, his brother Colin, also in the Olympics. A great sailing family. Gyro post, tacking, and Skilled Engineering certainly opening up the lead, and that is the top mark, just to the right of that speedboat.
Just drop the cunners off now, Ed.
Just saying to ease the Cunningham eye, that's it, easing it out of the cleat. It just takes the load off the luff of the sail. They'll do the big bear away, and this is dangerous.
Okay, straight set.
So he's saying that
Most
they
of
just
the
want,
boats are back out here behind us on start.
they want to just continue down this reach. They don't want to do a jibe, they're going to do a straight set, which means the breeze is coming in from that left-hand side of the course. The bear away.
Over right. Yep, go.
Great work there by Ed Smythe, who was the bowman on the old
Here we
Sony
go.
PlayStation
Plenty of boat
18-footer
waves here.
with Dan Slater.
Just right to cartwheel on. Okay, let's go.
Talking about the waves they're going to have to contend with.
See this hand pointing here for the camera boat to get out of the way before we spear down one of his waves.
Obvious
Comes
communication.
right now. Watch this one, watch it. Good work.
Nice and controlled. You know, how cool was this guy? Second position, gyro post, Hugh Stoddard. Third, Phil Airy from New Zealand. Fourth, Adam Beechall.
Yes, well, there's a touch of Humphrey Bogart, I think, about this young man, Chris Nicholson.
I've only seen him rattled a couple of times in the number of races I've sailed against Chris, and halfway through a really intense battle he usually turns around and smiles at you,
Just
which
getting
is
to the right.
pretty infuriating when the pressure's on.
The smiling assassin.
Certainly under control.
Oh no.
Having a laugh, look, he's loving this.
Okay, when you're right.
He might send Ed in to make a cup of tea here, they're so relaxed. Jibing now in the conditions, a bit of a slip and a stumble by Chris. But look at that. Boat accelerates, not a problem.
Well, we're less than 2 years away from the Olympic Games on Sydney Harbour for this 49er class. Chris Nicholson, who we can hear at the moment, is the early favourite for that gold medal, and that's why it's so important to put his stamp on it here.
It's amazing. Everyone said that the Australians would dominate this class. There's only 6 out of the 20 entrants in this
chopper puff from
Brisbane regatta.
Looks real
and
messy.
Certainly the international sailors have certainly got their boat handling skills up. But when the breeze is up, you can see the Kiwis and the Australians certainly on top.
What are we looking at, that one here or the other one?
Now, Rob, I heard
Might
Chris
have to
talking
take the
about
left-hand mark. That chopper's going to kill us.
a puff from the chopper.
Hold here. Jibe drop, we're right.
We're talking about which mark they're going to round and to avoid the chopper downdraft, which has given us those great aerial
Carrier's
pictures.
cleared.
So they've decided to take the left-hand mark, which puts them out to the right-hand side of the course. They've got a choice of 2 marks at the bottom of the course. But there again, you can see the decision-making process and how quick this guy handles a pressure situation.
Gyro post converging on this bottom mark, closely pursued there by the yellow spinnaker of Adam Bieshel, who's had a 5th and a 6th so far in the first 2 races.
They're quick. Kodak Express is definitely quick, and I think the crew work's coming through here and also the fitness levels.
Only going right-hand mark.
Well, this is a great effort by Hugh Stoddart and Daniel Phillips, former crewman with Chris Nicholson.
They're going out. Oh, he's lost control.
Keeping out of the
Hugh Stoddart there nearly lost it.
No,
A very bad rounding by Phil Airy. Adam Bieshel, clean as a whistle. Great spinnaker work by Teague Sislowski. And the Boyds coming into contention as well.
Yes, they had a 2nd placing in the opening race and then came through with a 5th. And they're certainly up in the fray, pressing for one of those top 3 positions.
Oh, look at Mike Kessler here, the German crew. That spinnaker all tangled up around the bow. It hasn't gone down the tube. Hasn't been ripped. But these guys are certainly out of contention.
So our leader is skilled. Adam Bieshel in 2nd place, and Gyro Post is being pressed very hard here by the Boyd twins, closest. They are really enjoying these fresh conditions and have a chance to slip through into 3rd place here.
Just noticing how powerful they've got the sails. The breeze is not that strong. Here we are back on Mike Kessler's boat. You've got the forward end up there trying to sort out that problem.
Yeah, plenty of power.
The Boyds look pretty well under control here. They've got the sails nice and full. I don't think the breeze is that strong, but these waves are certainly making it hard for the crews to get through. Now this is Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski, and you can see how smooth they are. Not much tiller movement there. Bouncing the boat down, trying to keep it as flat as possible. They look like they're really coming to grips with this race.
Well, they're holding down 2nd place comfortably now as Skilled rounds the top mark for the last time. Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe with a big lead.
Tacking now, Gyro Post. Now the critical decision here, Gyro Post tacked too early. The Boyd brothers have gone probably another 2 or 3 boat lengths. And because Phil Airy is just tacked in behind him, I'd say the Gyro Post is on a way to the top mark.
But they are at the moment.
And here comes Adam Bieshel. They've been very quick up this beat. They've come from 3rd position to a good, solid 2nd position. So Adam and Teague starting to wind up in this Schneider 49er series on Waterloo Bay.
Yes, when the going got tough, the tough got going. Adam Bieshel has made his move in the series into 2nd place.
Great hoist by Teague. You can hear the puffing going on in the background. This is where the fitness comes in. Hugh Stoddart, Dan Phillips, 3rd. Hotly contested by the Boys. They're going to try and get inside. Hugh Stoddart there. Very important, the spinnaker sets. I'll give that equal. 2 great sets.
So Gyro Post having a private war right to the death here with the Boyd twins, who are desperate to get that 3rd place. But Skilled in this last sprint gets a little more puff and is going to win its first race of the Brisbane Regatta.
They're coming down in one jibe to the finish. They don't have to jibe back into the course, and a great victory
keep it on, Ed.
for the current world champion, Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe.
See that man, Matty Coleman, evil man on the drink.
Chris is referring to my ex-sheet hand, Matty Coleman, who's driving the camera boat. Sounds like they must be doing a little bit of partying out of office hours.
Well, here's Gyro Post and also the Boyd twins. They are nip and tuck coming down to the line.
They look, they're pretty safe here, Houston, and they've sailed a great race. Their boat speed mightn't have been quite up to scratch, but they've handled the pressure pretty well.
Terrific effort there by Stoddart and Daniel Phillips. And Adam Bieshel comfortably in the second position there in the foreground.
Phil Airy from New Zealand, the green spinnaker there, dropped out of contention.
And that's Ardenau of France with the blue spinnaker.
Here we are, the first mark of the race. And Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe tacking. They got off the line in good shape, hit that left-hand side, come in, tack, first round the mark, good set. Got out of all the turmoil of boats crashing and capsizing. A very controlled race by the top Australian crew.
Yes, he was a cool dude, Chris Nicholson. He and Ed Smythe combining brilliantly in tough conditions to win race 3 of this Schneider 49er Brisbane Regatta. Second place to Adam Bieshel. That's their best placing so far. Gyro Post third, the Boyds in fourth position, and then a host of boats not finishing. Let's check out then the progressive results of the Brisbane Regatta for the Olympic class 49ers. Skilled is the new regatta leader from the Boyds. Morgan Larson, United States in third. Adam Bieshel, who won the regatta in Perth, in fourth place. And the progressive points for the second half of the fleet, Nicorette leading the way from the 2 Danish entries. This week's 49er profile is brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. The Budgeon brother team from Great Britain, Andy and Ian, may be relatively new to skiff sailing, but these 2 Scotsmen have already proved that they are a force to be reckoned with. After all, they did come second in the 1998 49er World Championship.
You guys were champions in the Laser 5000s. How well has that tuned you up for the 49ers?
I mean, we sailed the 5000s for several years as a full-time campaign with a big sponsor. I think that more than anything tuned us up for the 49. It's just a way of doing things. The actual boats themselves are quite different. And I feel that the 49er certainly took a lot of work early on to get our boat handling sorted and just to get into sort of a new way of sailing, really.
So you guys obviously must get on pretty well overall.
Yeah, on the water we get on fine. There's no doubt about that. It's just, I mean, a brotherly thing as much as anything else. You can always move on. You can say whatever you like to one another and you always forget it because you've said it for the last 20, 25 years to one another at some stage. So you just, you know, forget about what's happened and move on to the next day.
I've wanted to do an Olympic campaign for a number of years, and I tried to get money for soling a long time ago, and the 49ers sort of gave us a good chance to go and try and get a gold medal. And I think, you know, for me it's a medal at the end of the day, which is really important.
Situated just 30 minutes from the heart of Brisbane is the venue for this regatta, the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron. Stretching over 7 acres of prime waterfront land on Waterloo Bay in Manly, Royal Queensland has a long and prestigious history. In fact, it is often the venue for major sailing events, most notably the World Etchell Championships and Olympic selection regattas. The club also has an amazing Olympic history, having the distinction of being represented at yachting competitor or management level in every Olympic game since Melbourne in 1956. This week's Olympic class profile is the 2-man star class. By birthright, Colin Bieshel should have been a 49er sailor. Sure, his brother Adam is a hot contender in the class, but Colin, however, decided that keel boats were his passion. And lucky for us, because in Atlanta he won a bronze medal in the star class, and as 49er designer Julian Bethwaite found out, is looking to go 2 better when he hits the water in the Sydney Olympics.
the bronze in Atlanta. Going to the end, it was pretty exciting, I understand.
Yeah, it was a close series all the way through with the Brazilian there, and came down to the last race, and we knew we had the bronze wrapped up, and we decided that at one point it was boat for boat with the Brazilian, so we went for it, and unfortunately pushed a bit hard at the start and got sent home at the top mark.
Australia's star class of Colin Beashall.
Do you want to tell us a bit about your crew?
Yeah, well, I've got a fellow who's been with me for a long time. It's coming up to 8 or 9 years now, David Giles. I think it's that relationship that we've got going on the water that is leading to the success we're having at the moment. You know, we're literally, you know, it's almost a bit scary at times. We think, oh, it's about time we stop sailing together, because we're starting to be able to communicate without actually saying anything. But he's got a very good tactical brain and a very intelligent person as well. Our training is our competition. We travel to Europe and the States, January, February, March, April. We do a lot of racing in Miami. Those regattas, whilst they're top competition, we also treat them as our training times there, where we're testing different sails and shapes and different rig setups.
So your chances in Sydney, you think they're good?
I think they are. We've had a great season in Europe this year in the Star with Spa and Kiel, and just finished off winning the Worlds, beating the Brazilian, and basically all our top competition there. At this stage it's going well.
Race 4 of the Brisbane Regatta, again taken out by skilled Chris Nicholson. In second place, the Budgeon brothers from Great Britain, and Adam Beashall coming home in third. Yes, Adam Beashall certainly making his mark in the regatta now, but the progressive points after 4 races, skilled first, Chris Nicholson, Beashall second, Morgan Larson third, and the Boyd twins in 4th position ahead of Ardenneau of France. And then we moved on to race 5. And this time it was Adam Beashall, Rob Brown, who came through for a stunning victory. The Danes also up in the firing line with Great Britain 1.
Well, we've seen both Chris Nicholson and Adam Beashall slow to start in this series, but really it comes down to race 6. Whoever beats who in this last race of the series will take out the Brisbane event.
Yes, head to head then. It's Chris Nicholson against Adam Beashall, and the start all important here, Rob Brown.
A little tack there by Adam Beashall, and there's contact between Adam Beashall and the Boyd brothers. The starting line heavily favoured up towards the committee boat end, and they're very early, they're very close to the line. Great boat control required in this situation. The Boyd's coming in there.
Crews are starting to sheet on now for the final race of the series. And Adam and Teague right at the boat end there. A little bit slow out of the blocks. That was the Brits. And a fantastic start from the Brits.
Okay, ready, Mark?
So there's been an early starter, but keep your eye on Adam Beashall, the yellow mainsail, and also skilled, because they are head to head in this final race. Whoever finishes in front of the other will win the regatta. What a climax we have. Adrian, there were a couple of jumpy skippers down there.
That was a great start from the British, and there's 2 recalls, 508 and 501.
So there's New Zealand, Phil Airy, number 508, and also sail number 488, Paul Brotherton from Great Britain.
You'd expect in the last race of the series, whoever beats who between Nicholson and Beashall, they would have gone head-to-head at that start. But having started against Chris Nicholson, he doesn't get involved in little personal battles. He just looks at the course, looks at the breeze, and wants to get out and clear air.
And he wants to make sure that he is between Adam Beashall and the mark.
At the first beat, the breeze is only going to be about 5 or 10 degrees shifts up here, so we've got a big split in the pack, half the fleet to the left and half the fleet to the right.
We've seen that in so many races, the fleet does split. We've got Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe coming out here to the right-hand side, and look who's going with him. Adam Beashall and Teague Siglowski. They're not going to give this bloke an inch today.
We've got real European conditions out here on Waterloo Bay, Rob, and the European crews are to the fore in the early stages. The Budgeon boys are doing well, so is the Frenchmen and also the Danes.
the breeze certainly lighter. We've got a very close contest between the Beachell crew here in the yellow jackets and the green jackets of Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe. Heading out to the right-hand side of the course. The water a lot flatter than we've seen in the last few races. The breeze has dropped down, as Adrian indicated, around the 10-knot mark. So this is where skill and dexterity and smoothness comes into the sailing.
It's going to be a war of nerves, and these two boats are very comparable at the moment.
Not too much difference in boat speed there, as we see this right-hand group. That's the mark. This boat here on starboard tack, heading towards the top marks. Looks like he's slightly undelayed. And here comes Skilled Engineering on port, has to duck behind.
Okay, two boats can
Dan
get
Slater's Solomite bed. So there's another boat length advantage to Adam Beachell. And here's Skilled Engineering coming across. He has the option of tacking, like the orange boat has just done. Or, in fact, what he did was go behind because he believes that Silent Night Beds will not lay the top mark. Skilled Engineering continuing on port tack. You'll see them having a look over their shoulder and picking that vital way. There's Ed Smythe having a look now. Chris having another look. So he'll clear his air on that skiff there.
I think we got a hold here, Morgan.
And they'll follow them into the top mark. So Skilled Engineering
after Dan.
back in the bunch a little bit. Adam Beachell certainly holding the whip hand at this stage.
Before the boys.
So although they have a lot of skiffs ahead of them, they are keeping a very firm eye on Adam Beachell.
And there's another skiff which is just tacked in front of the Skilled boat. Those boats coming in from the left-hand side of the course have done better. And all these boats here have overlaid. So there it is, the starboard tack lay line, all converging in on that top mark. Everyone would be thinking now all Chris Nicholson has done, but this guy is so good under pressure. There's Silent Night Beds coming back across. So the left-hand side paying this first lap of the last race of the Schneider 49er series.
And first around is Great Britain 1, Andy and Ian Budgeon, the two Scotsmen. Ardenneau of France, who's certainly battling for one of the minor placings in this regatta in second place. Number 504 going round in third place, the Danes, Michael Peterson. Then Ian Barker of Great Britain, followed by the other Great Britain crew of Paul Brotherton and Neil MacDonald.
Certainly Adam Beachell rounded in front of Chris Nicholson, but his vision straight around that mark, doing a jibe set. He wants to get clear air, he wants to get out of the bunch, and he wants to go.
Okay, with you.
Oh, look at Skilled, nearly capsizing. They're fighting to get air around the front of Finlandia Vodka. That was very close. A capsize at this point of the race would have been disastrous for Chris Nicholson, but under control now. There it is, the replay. He's luffing. Weatherboat must keep clear and heads in the spinnaker. So Finlandia Vodka, Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen. By rights, you have to do a 360-degree turn for that infringement. Here's the leaders, the Great Britain crew, doing a fine job. This is the first time they've been in front in the series.
Yes, these are the conditions they really do enjoy. And finally, Andy and Ian Budgeon have found some rhythm, and they are taking full advantage. Now Beachell, I think, is back in about 9th position at the moment, in close company with Skill.
Race leaders, the British, toughing it out for 1 and 2 with the French. It's even money down the course on the breeze at the moment. It doesn't appear that either side has made any gains.
Adrian Carlin, former Grand Prix 18-foot champion and round-the-world yachtswoman. And as she said, the Europeans to the fore. They're dominating the top placings at the moment, but we're also keeping an eye on Adam Beachell and Chris Nicholson because they split jibes going downwind here. Whoever finishes in front of those two Aussie skippers will win this Brisbane regatta. Andy Budgeon and brother Ian.
You can just see there the difference in trapezing styles. Two crew quite a way apart. If you notice the Australian and New Zealand techniques, always the crew on trapeze is very close together, and that's to improve the airflow. But a lovely jibe there by the Brits as they come down to the bottom mark, and remembering they have a choice of 2 marks at the bottom of the course, and it'll be very interesting to see if they head off towards the left-hand side of the course. But here we are with Skilled, Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe. They're probably about 30 or 40 seconds behind the leader at this point in time. But where's Adam Bieshel and Teague Siglowski?
Well, he's just astern, Rob. There's that blazing yellow spinnaker of Adam Bieshel. And these two are just neck and neck in this critical final race of the Brisbane Regatta.
So the Brits down at the bottom mark have chosen to go round that right-hand bottom mark, which takes them out to the right-hand side of the course, remembering that the left-hand side of the course paid up the first beat. They've got a nice handy lead here, and the wind pressure down around the 8 to 10 knots, so very light and tricky conditions here on Waterloo Bay.
The European crews have admitted they are a little underdone, so this is a timely confidence booster for Andy and Ian Budgeon, who came into the sport before their teens, sailing aboard their father's Etchell and later on his Sigma 33. They then went into the 420 class, but here's our private war. Adam Bieshel, just astern of Skilled, as they close on the bottom mark.
So really, the two positions have just reversed from the top mark. Chris Nicholson decided to jibe, set, and go out to the right-hand side of the course. Adam Bieshel continued on, but there's nothing in this. They've still got to be careful here. They can really get locked into a battle, and if they go right to the back of the fleet, this could present a problem when you start dropping worse performances. Skilled coming down here. Looks like they're going to do a jibe drop. So Chris Nicholson wants this left-hand side of the course. Adam Bieshel there, coming in jibing. He's going to force.
He's got them all there. We should make
He's demanding buoy room here, and certainly he did have it. And there's the Finnish crew, Finlandia Vodka, of Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen. They'd be happy with their position at this point in time. You can see here that the French would get gassed once again by the British. Receiving the disturbed air out the back. You can see the boat speed dropping right off the French now.
Lovely work, John.
As we call in the trade, sucking gas.
A little bit more, actually.
And the Brits lead. They've led around every mark of the course so far, so they're certainly doing a great job out here this afternoon. Second, the French, Marc Ordonneau. Doing a jibe set. And when it come out, the general rule is you go downwind the way you come upwind, and it certainly did pay off for them out on that right-hand side of the course.
So where is Skill? They look to be back maybe 4 places now behind Bieshel.
I think Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall from the United States have slipped in between them. So Nicholson has a bit of work to do here. And you're dead right, Gordon. There is Bieshel and Sislowski. Done a great job up that left-hand side of the course.
So this could be a telling move here by Bieshel, because Skilled has been caught on the wrong side of that ship, and there is Skilled. 5 skiffs now behind Adam Bieshel.
And that's a lot of traffic to get through in these lighter breezes. If the breeze is up, you can probably put your money on Skilled to work his way through, but the crew works. There's not much difference between these skiffs in this lighter air. As you said, the Europeans are fine technicians of light air sailing, and really Chris Nicholson has to put the pedal down here, get his head out of the boat and outsmart his opposition. But these guys, the Flying Scotsmen, are doing a fine job with the French flat on their heels. They are heading down towards the bottom of the course. One more beat to windward, and this could be their first victory in this series.
Well, the thing about the Frenchmen is if they can finish 3 placings ahead of the Boyd brothers, they will get 3rd place in the regatta ahead of the Boyd. So there's another war going on within this race.
Certainly, we're back with Adam Bieshel and Teague Siglowski jibing down towards the start-finish gate. And they be certainly looking over their shoulder and just seeing where Chris Nicholson is. He's coming in from the right-hand side of the course. And this is nerve-wracking conditions out here when you're leaving your opposition, and with the breeze so light and flicky, anything can happen.
So Nicholson, centre top, coming across. In the foreground here, Adam Bieshel, but there are 2 or 3 skiffs in between, it seems, at this stage as they come down to the start-finish gate.
He looks like he has closed slightly, but we'll see as they go through the gate. As the leaders jibe now, getting rid of the spinnaker. So they've decided that they want to go out to the right-hand side of the course. So the breeze must be flicking around here. It's not just a one-way track as we've been suggesting.
So it's Scotland the Brave, Ian and Andy Budgeon. Great Britain won, and the Great Britain crews, well, they're in the top 6 at the moment, all 3 of them. And there's a terrific battle going on for those first 4 placings. The Boyd brothers, the leading Australian skiff at the moment.
I hope Adam Bieshel, at some point in time, and really has to do it now, is start covering Chris Nicholson. He can't afford to leave himself in a position where he's on one side of the course and Chris Nicholson's on the other. He has to cover him up this beat.
So hectic traffic here at the bottom mark rounding, and the Boyds clearly back in 6th position.
And Adam Bieshel here is going to have to stir there, and look how slow they are. As their opposition comes hurtling down towards these bottom marks, I wouldn't be surprised to see Chris Nicholson go out to the right-hand side. He has to do something different. Adam Bieshel tacking to clear his air. And at this point in time, the conversation on board is, where is Nicholson? Where is the breeze? Let's stay in contact. Let's cover him all the way to the finish.
And where is the trophy too? They certainly have a hand on it at the moment, the Bieshels, but the Scots, Great Britain won. The Budgeons out in front. They're having a battle royale with the French, who have their eyes on 3rd place in the regatta overall ahead of the Boyds.
Mark Ordino has not won our race, but he's been very consistent throughout this series. And it's great to see the other British crews in Paul Brotherton and Neil MacDonald, closely followed by Ian Barker and Simon Hiscox, doing a great job. So the light air, really, the European, the Great British crews are doing very well in these light conditions. Now this is Neil MacDonald and Paul Brotherton attacking now in 3rd position. As the Budgeon brothers tack the last time in this series as they head to the top mark. They've got the whole fleet behind them, and what a great feeling that is.
We'll get Russell here, guys.
Ian and Andy Budgeon. Yes, the Bonnie Scots, they have led from go to woe. But Adrian Carlin down on the water. What about the real race? Bieshel and Nicholson.
Okay, that's how it stands at the moment. You can see the Adam Bieshel and Chris Nicholson. They're really just covering the middle side of the course. The breeze is very steady at 10 knots, so they can't really back aside.
So it's a loose cover, Rob, is that fair to say, from Adam Bieshel?
It certainly is, and the breeze is certainly flicking, because here's the leaders having to tack once more to the top mark, so that breeze is really flicking around. But certainly back to the Bieshel-Nicholson bout. I think Adam will probably have a sore neck up this last beat. He won't let Nicholson out of his sight for love nor money.
Expert comments from Rob Brown, former Australia 2 America's Cup yachtsman and 3-time World 18-foot skiff champion. Adam Bieshel in front at the moment of his arch rival, Chris Nicholson.
I just saw Teague having a quick look behind there. They're not going to give Chris an inch here, but they're looking pretty good here. They've got enough distance. They just got to watch they don't do anything silly up this last beat.
Well, the Budgeons aren't going to do anything silly. They look to have it all nicely parcelled up, although the French do have other ideas in 2nd place. But what does this mean for Adam Bieshel if he can hold on here and win the regatta?
Well, it's going to be a great confidence booster for these guys. They've come into the class a little later than everyone else, and Chris Nicholson was basically tagged as unbeatable, and if they can take that out today, it certainly will put them in great stead for the very important races coming up.
So the Budgeons with this final spinnaker run to the finish. Adam Bieshel coming up to this top mark, skilled in his wake at the moment. So they've covered their arch rival all the way up. The French around in 2nd place, and then Paul Brotherton 3rd, followed by the other Great Britain skiff, Ian Barker, and the Boyd still back in 5th.
You can just see how the leading skiff always opens out when you get towards the closing stages of a race. The tactics tighten up and people tend to defend their position. But I think the mood on board this boat would be a little bit of excitement, the harder we going, realising that they're just got to go around this mark and head down towards the finish. Nothing silly here, boys, and you've got the series.
And it's very much a catch-up situation now for Chris Nicholson on skill. There's not a lot he can do about it at the moment as the Budgeon steam down to the finishing line in race 6 of this Schneider 49er regatta here in Brisbane.
There's the gap, the vapour trails out behind these skiffs. They're probably up around the 13 knot mark in a breeze which is only blowing around 10 knots. There's Skilled coming into the top mark.
Not a happy situation for Chris Nicholson. You could say he has the job in front now to catch Adam Bichel.
In all fairness to Chris and Ed, you know, they've a new crew combination. They're still working things out. There's plenty of time to go. And as I've always said, you never write off Chris Nicholson.
The Bonnie Scotts across in first place. The Budgeon brothers have clinched race 6 here in Brisbane. The French holding down second at the moment. And they're not far astern. That's their best performance of the series. Ardenau looks as though he may have got third place in the regatta. We'll have to wait and see how the boys finish in this last race.
They've been very consistent, the French crew, and I'm very impressed with the British performance here today. Here we have Paul Brotherton and Neil McDonald. They'd be pretty happy with that performance.
And so too Adam Bichel. They have done it. They've finally broken through. Bichel and Sislowski have won the Brisbane regatta. Tremendous performance. And what about the start? Was that critical?
Well, you'd have to say back in retrospect, maybe Chris Nicholson should have attacked Bichel at the start, try and take him out, get the boxing gloves on a little bit more.
Yes, well, Andy Budgeon and Ian, the brothers from Scotland, have taken out race 6. The French getting second, Ian Barker third, and the Boyds home in fourth place ahead of Dan Slater in Silent Night Beds. And they're the second half of the fleet, but critically, the French getting second, finishing third overall in the regatta ahead of the Boyds in Bort, Longyear, Wilson. Adam Bichel breaking through over Chris Nicholson in Skilled. France third, Australia fourth, USA fifth, and Great Britain Ian Barker in sixth position. So the laurels with Adam Bichel and Chris Nicholson, not used to being the bridesmaid.
Adam and T, they slowed us up a bit on the first work, and we ended up back in the pack, as he said, and then the moment when they were able to step to the left-hand side away from the pack, and we still were mixing it up, fighting it out, you know, around the 10th to 15th spot, and it's hard calling your way back from there.
Heaps of great action on the next episode of the Schneider 49er series. And Melbourne will host the 99 World Sailing Championships down on beautiful Port Phillip Bay. From the 6th to the 17th of January, the world's best sailors will do battle for the sport's penultimate trophy in a timely lead-up to the Olympics. The fabulous 49ers, the Schneider Regatta now moves to Sydney. We'll see you then. Welcome to famous Sydney Harbour. This is where the Olympic sailing will all happen come 2000. The Schneider 49er series moves to regatta number 3. We've been to Perth, we've been to Brisbane, And Aussie skipper Adam Bieshel and Teague Sislowski are the crew that are setting a very frenetic pace. We have all of the top Olympic crews here, skippers from 13 countries, so we're set for some fantastic racing right here on beautiful Sydney Harbour.
In light wind and in strong wind, we feel confident that we can go out and do well in races, that we're a well-rounded team compared to, there's some light air specialists, there's some heavy air specialists, and we feel we can do well in both conditions.
Great to see the McKee brothers back on Sydney Harbour. After the qualifying races here in Sydney, they are in equal fourth with Ukraine. Adam Bieshel leads the way from Paul Brotherton. Morgan Larson, USA, in equal second. Skill back in sixth. Ordonneau of France in 11th. Silent Night Beds, New Zealand's Dan Slater in 14th. And the Boyd brothers back in 17th place. Fresh conditions for the start, 11 to 14 knot drop round.
The course today, 800 metres top to bottom. The boats work up to a top mark, set their spinnakers down to a choice of 2 bottom marks. They work back up, the number of laps dependent on the wind strength, and they finish on the spinnaker.
And experience in these fresh conditions is going to be very crucial here at the start.
Well, it looks like the breeze has dropped out a little bit, Gordon, and here we have Bieshel and Teague Sislowski. They've been working heavily on their pre-start boat control. With 15 seconds to go, the boats are wobbling into the start, and it's very important to hit the line with pace as the gun goes.
Skills in the middle of the course, so too Bieshel.
That probably means that the breeze is fairly even, not terribly biased in any one direction. That looks like a clear start. And who's going to give Adam Bieshel a run for his money? We've got the world champion, Chris Nicholson, struggling to secure his dominance in this class with a lot of contenders coming through.
Also McKee brothers and Morgan Larson, but Julian Bethwaite at the start.
Okay, we have a clean start. It was very close. The French on the left-hand side have had to tack out early. You'll find most of the boats will go over to the left-hand side of the harbour, but we also have a ship coming down the harbour which should cause us some grief. We have a beautiful 14 to 15 knot nor'easter blowing down the harbour, which should add to some very entertaining sailing.
USA 205 there, the McKee brothers. Great Britain 1 is the Budgeons. And the Italians doing well with Ordonneau of France.
Skilled had to tack out of there. He was copying the gas off a number of skiffs. Plenty of spectator craft, and here's one in particular, having to avoid a spectator craft right in the middle of the course. They certainly won't be able to do that in 2000. The tide at the moment is ebbing. It's flowing from left to right, which won't be a major factor on this course. The most important thing is to eliminate tacks and pick those vital wind shifts up this first beat.
So they're heading up to the top mark now, and the skiff's on the right-hand side of the course.
Okay.
Getting up to the ley line.
We're on board the Finnish entrant, Finlandia Vodka, with Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen. How's your Finnish these days, Gordon?
I was relying on your high school translations, Rob, so we'll have to just play that one by ear, I think.
As they tack now, looks like these guys are coming in from the right-hand side of the course, heading towards the top mark.
Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater. Well, he said he wasn't happy with his qualifying series, but he's confident he can get it together here. As the Americans go round in first place,
here,
Morgan Larson, USA 208, ahead of Adam Bieshel. It's congested.
Now these boats coming in on port tack cannot tack there. It's a 2-boat tacking zone there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few protest flags up there. But Adam Bieshel, very consistent around in second. And I saw Chris Nicholson there coming around probably in about 5th or 6th position.
Silent Night Beds was actually at the mark in 3rd place, but they've lost out there on the right-hand side.
Approaching on port is very dangerous in this short course racing. Had to continue on because of the no tack zone, the 2-boat length circle at the top mark. But here's our leaders, Morgan Larson and Adam Bieshel. And Adam Bieshel's got down inside of him and he's controlling the leader. The leader cannot jibe from that position.
Well, this is the gold fleet, and we're on board the Finnish entry with Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen.
As he's pulling up the spinnaker here, the pole is extended out the front of the boat. There's a boat capsizing, weaving his way through the carnage. Very congested back in the fleet there.
Morgan Larson out in front of Adam Bieshel. Ordonneau of France there in 3rd place with the blue spinnaker, Skilled. And the other French entry with Derville and Gasparini ahead of Dan Slater, New Zealand, and the Italians.
And a great job there by the Smiths Kodak Express. Bieshel really laying be a bit of authority on the Americans at this stage. Jibe inside of him, and I think he'll take his air and pass the Americans.
We're coming down to the start-finish gates, and it looks as though Adam Bieshel has snuck a slight advantage here in these fresh conditions, getting a nice line into the start-finish line as they head down to the bottom mark.
And there you see the yellow spinnaker rolling over the top of the American crew. They've done a great job there. They've hit the front, and now they'll be looking for that vital angle down towards the bottom marks.
Yeah, you're right.
As you see them trapezing right down the back of the bus. The waves there, they've got to keep the bow out. Perfect steering and control there.
Well, they're certainly punching along at a good clip, as we can hear the Finns. They are back in third last position in this 20-boat fleet.
Going into the jibe now. Good weight distribution through the boat. Both crew hitting the windward wing. Boat accelerates. So they've done a fine job, rounding in second, rolling over the top of the Americans, and also the French. Mark Odno has rolled over the top of Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, so things not going the best for the Americans at this stage.
Skilled in fourth place, behind Australia, France and the USA, and the Italians in fifth.
That's the French. Mark Odno from France, doing a great job, being very consistent in the series leading up to this regatta. And there's the two bottom marks, Adam Bieshel and Teague Zigzowski doing a jibe drop. They want that left-hand side. There's the two marks. They've got the choice. They can either go out to the left-hand side of the course or the right.
Ordino round in second place.
Still good
Morgan
pressure
Larson
behind
third.
there.
Then Skilled going to the right-hand side of the course.
And Skilled opting to go out the opposite direction. And looks like they either let the main cheek go or got a little bit of chopper downdraft there. And here we have the McKee brothers demanding their inside right. There's a collision there. And I'd say the French crew on your left has said you didn't have right there, Americans. Get the hell out of there.
And here's our race leader, Adam Bieshel. They certainly have improved dramatically. What's been the key?
Not necessarily boat speed advantage. I think more of possibly sometimes just a technique, how to gain that little bit of boat speed out of the boat in a certain phase of the wind, whether we have to sail high or low mode, depending on where the pressure is to us. And we've got a good technique and good eyes on picking when it is the time to go high or the time to go fast.
Yes, well, they seem to be making all the right decisions, and the world champion Chris Nicholson in Skilled with Ed Smythe back in fourth position. Rob Brown.
Well, everyone really looks up to this guy, Chris Nicholson. They're coming up the course for the second time. They're nearly on a lay to the top mark. But Chris Nicholson's domination over the last 2 years has been quite extraordinary. But it just shows you, when you're at the top of the pyramid, everyone's trying to beat you, and you know, have we got a new champion coming through? They certainly are, throwing out the gauntlet.
Nicholson won the first world title in Perth and then backed up again in France, and we're heading down to Port Phillip Bay in this Schneider 49er series for the third world title. Can Nicholson retain it? Bieshel says no at the moment.
That's a lovely tack on the Skilled boat. Let's just watch some of that technique that we're talking about as they come to the top mark for the second time. Rounding the mark. I think they've opened up quite a nice handy lead here.
And demonstrating why they wanted that left-hand side of the course. It looks as though Teague Zigzowski and Adam Bieshel are in tune today on Sydney Harbour in this fresh 14-knot nor'easter.
But what a battle going on for second. Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall picking a very fine lay to that top mark, have got back into second. So for France versus America.
Yes, and we have a host of international crews competing, including 5 from Great Britain in this gold medal fleet.
You've got a battle royal here starting to develop between the Americans and the French. The Americans, that long-term planning got them ahead, but now the French seem to have better downwind speed than the Americans. This will be an interesting little tussle downhill.
Julian Bethwaite is on the start-finish boat for us on the course today, Rob Brown, the designer of these 49ers and a champion 18-foot skiff sailor in his own right.
Certainly has. He's, you know, the 49er class was designed in Australia and was up against 32 other designs, and it's a great credit to Julian Bethwaite and his family.
Well, what a taste of things to come at Sydney 2000. Here we are on the harbour. Quite a few spectator craft out on the course, but keeping well out of the way, and that's just as well because these skiffs are absolutely flying at the moment. The French throwing out a challenge to the USA with Bichel, Australia in the lead still.
And look at this guy go downwind.
I don't know if it's still going to be.
The breeze up 13, 14 knots, trapezing down the back
just
of the wing.
a little more in the back.
You know, their concentration to keep these boats afloat's one thing, but we've got some of the best sailors in the world here. Tactics, boat control, looking out for those vital wind shifts on a 900-metre top-to-bottom course. The brain is working overtime.
Skill was back in fourth position, but Adam Bichel has cleared out here.
And the French have got back ahead of Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall, so a great battle going on for second and third. That technique that these guys were talking about, Adam was talking about earlier, is the fact of getting your heads out of the boat, looking up the course and having the confidence in the settings you've got with the boat. So you're not continually changing the controls on the boat, and that enables them to handle their course positioning and picking those vital wind shifts.
So it looks as though he wants the left-hand side of the course again once they round that bottom mark. Coming in now on starboard jibe.
Be interesting to see. The breeze looks very centrally orientated down the course. They have a choice of these two bottom marks. They're doing a normal spinnaker drop, so they're going to head out towards the left-hand side of the course. And one of the reasons is just to clear air. You don't want to come back round. The jib a little bit slow coming on there from Teague, but they've got about 15, 20 seconds up their sleeve.
They're skilled on the left, still trying to get its angle into the mark, and the French have done a great job here, Rob.
They certainly have. They've opened up on Morgan Larson coming in from the left-hand side of your screen. The French flapping their spinnaker. They look like they want that left-hand side as well. So they'll have a jibe drop coming up from Kevin Hall. They're flagging their spinnaker, dropping it early. This will be slow because they're going to have to drop their spinnaker. No, they're going to continue out to this right-hand side. Chris Nicholson opting to go the other way, doing a jibe drop. Nice rounding. This is where the heart rate's up. The crew's working overtime to get those spinnakers in, getting sucked down the spinnaker tube. Jib coming on, and they're back out in trapeze.
So the Italians coming round in fifth position. Skilled after losing out on the right-hand side of the course on the first work, has now gone out to the left, following Adam Bichel here.
Chris Nicholson's got an amazing ability to get his head out of the boat. Even that doesn't matter if there's 20 boats around. He's got a very special attribute of being able to pick the breeze and keeping his head concentrating on the job.
So one of the French crews there around that bottom mark. We're on board Finlandia now. Risto Tapper and Jukka Pirinen.
Talking about, I would imagine, what's going to happen down here with this gaggle of boats heading in towards the bottom mark. They've got a boat rolling over the top of them there.
They have passed three skiffs coming downwind, so a good effort there by the Finns.
And a very good effort for them to qualify so high coming into this regatta. Smith's Kodak Express really laying down a charge. For 2 years to go to the Olympics, and the amount of time that they've spent in the class are doing very well. And here they are, they've passed through the start-finishing gate, heading out towards the left-hand side, approaching the top mark for the last time.
And the order behind Adam Bichel is Ordonneau of France in second place, Morgan Larson third, and then 509 back in fourth place at the moment.
Tacking up to the top mark. Beautiful Sydney Harbour, the Opera House in the background, the perfect setting for the Olympics. Okay. This will be the best sailing arena that sailing's ever had in the Olympics. They've always been sometimes up to 100, 200 kilometres away from the main village in the Olympics. This is the Italian crew, Francesco Bruni and his brother doing a fine job, just trying to work their way can see that how disturbed the water is on Sydney Harbour, and these small boats, they're only 4.9 metres long, and trying to work their way up through these waves, proving very difficult.
Francesco and Gabriel Bruni in 6th position behind our race leader here, Teague Sislowski, the crewman.
You can see Teague there working the main sheet, and Adam doing a fair bit of steering to try and keep the boat flat, to bounce the boat over the waves.
Well, they've certainly been in phase too with this fresh breeze. Their tacks have been outstanding. Their jibing has been right at the summit. And just watch their crew work here as they come round this top mark for the last time.
A little bit slow on that one. The bow hit a wave just as they went into the tack. We'll watch Teague as he goes in there, hoisting the spinnaker up now. Got to be so careful that spinnaker doesn't dig in the water. If that happens, the boat trips over and capsizes, but no problems on board the Smith's Kodak Express.
They have been having a bit of problem with their halyard fleet. It has been slipping out, and that's something they're going to have to look at.
Boat maintenance is very important on these boats.
Mark Ordino, Rob, here in 2nd place ahead of Morgan Larson. Skilled in 4th. Great battle for the minors.
There's been nothing between these two skiffs. They certainly have had a great battle today, and that first run was very costly for the Americans. But look at the lead that Adam Bichel and Teague Siglowski have. Let's watch the spinnaker sets on the French. Back to the leader, Adam Bichel and Teague Siglowski coming down to the finish for the last time.
Pressure back
well,
in
they
3.
have dominated this Schneider 49er series, winning the first 2 regattas as we've mentioned.
After this gust.
Nice control there, good steering, good weight distribution.
Okay.
Very important to keep those wings out of the water. If they dig in, the boat slows down, stops. These guys have been doing a hell of a lot of training, both on Pittwater and Sydney Harbour. And just done a fantastic job today to get through the Americans. Kept their noses clean, got a very good start, put a very good first beat together. They're on target.
Adam Bichel, the 4th generation of a famous Sydney skiff sailing family, across the line in 1st place. A comprehensive win. It's going to be very tight for the 2nd between Ordino of France and Morgan Larson, the 2 international crews. Skill is going to make it interesting too.
On board with the French. Trapezing right down the back of the bus, keeping that bow out. They'll be having a bit of a look over their shoulders to see where the Americans are. Staying between the finishing line and opposition as they approach the finishing line. Mark Ordino, 2nd, ahead of Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall. The American entry, Chris Nicholson believes these are the guys that are going to fight it out for the gold medal in a couple of years' time. You've got to get there first.
Yeah, maybe he might be changing his thinking after this performance by Adam Bichel, as Skilled is across in 4th place for Australia.
And followed by the McKee brothers from America.
The Italians next.
And Dan Slater and Silent Night Beds crossing the finishing line. And here's that incident down at the bottom mark. We've got the Kiwis coming around, the French closing the gap on the McKee brothers. Now, the McKees believe they had Boyroon, had an overlap coming into the mark. The French disagree. Maybe the protest room will sort this one out.
No love lost there between the French and the Americans. We'll be back with the result of that protest in a few moments. And the result of that protest, the McKee brothers had right of way at that bottom mark. So Adam Bichel, Australia, ahead of Ordino of France, Morgan Larson, United States, Chris Nicholson in Skilled in 4th, and in 5th position, the McKee brothers. The Boyds back in 9th place. There are 5 Great Britain crews in this international fleet. So the progressive standings, and that includes the qualifying series as well. It's Adam Bichel ahead of the McKee brothers, Morgan Larson, United States 3rd, Skilled 4th, and Ordino of France in 5th place, and Paul Brotherton and Neil MacDonald best placed of the 5 Great Britain crews. John and Gary Boyd in 11th place. This week's 49er profile is brought to you by UCMS, leaders in customer management solutions. The current world champion, Chris Nicholson, may have brought the world crown to Australia, but his crew, Ed, a relatively new member, has spent most of his life as a New Zealander.
Ed, how is he different to other skippers?
Different to other skippers, is definitely more composed than a lot of skippers are on the water, and yeah, probably works you a lot more harder, I'd say.
It sounds like as though you've still got a little bit of work to do on his accent.
Yeah, it's hard work, especially if you say there's boats coming at us at 6 o'clock. But you know, we're getting the communications working along nicely.
You know, you're the front runners, you're the World Championships. What sort of pressure does that create?
We've had a fair bit on, obviously, in the last year in terms of pressure. But it has to be dealt with at some stage. The amount of pressure that's on one of Australia's better chances. You take each regatta as it comes, and you realise very quickly how humbled you can be on the water by other boats that just turn it on in a race and you can't. So you're only as good as your last race.
And beyond the next 2 years?
Yeah, there'd be a big holiday. There's definitely going to be 3 months away from water planned, I would imagine. But it'd be hard to leave classes like this where it's purely racing. So I really don't know. It'd be, as long as the body's able, I'd love to keep doing this sort of thing.
The tiller extensions, they might look simple, long pieces of pole, but these long pieces of pole quite often get in the way. You've got to make them long enough so that they don't get caught in your trap jacket, because when you're out on the wire, sometimes it's easy to get caught and that can really spell trouble. The also thing with tiller extensions is that because they are long, it's easy to clash with other boats on the start line. And even if you hit your tiller extension with another boat, you might have to do a 360 penalty turn. Also out of collisions, they break, and once they break, you're out of the race.
This week's Olympic class profile is Michael Blackburn from the Lasers. Michael is currently ranked 2nd in the world and was unlucky not to get a medal in Atlanta, finishing 4th. But as you'd expect from a man with a PhD in sports science, he's philosophical about his last Olympic experience.
I wasn't good enough, basically. The guys ahead of me were obviously better, but that's been incentive to do a lot better in the coming years up to Sydney, being a hometown advantage hopefully then. And I've moved up the rankings, I'm now 2nd in the world, so hopefully the gold's within my grasp for Sydney. Trained really hard in the last 6 months or so to do what it takes to actually get there. I think I've got a good chance. The current world champion is won 3 times in a row and won the gold medal, so it won't be easy to knock off, but I think I've got a good chance. I'm my own guinea pig for a lot of my training, I think, and knowing a lot about how to train myself and how to compete properly in sports psychology, sports science, biomechanics, all those areas have proved a big advantage over the years in preparing myself to get to the highest level I can. My immediate goal in the next 3 weeks is to win the World Championships in Melbourne. After that, the next step is winning Olympic selection for Australia, which will be finalised by late next year. And then moving on 9 months later, September 15, 2000, the start of the Olympics and the start of the competition there, which I hope will go very well. Things have fallen in place so far, and hopefully they'll continue to do so.
So race 2 now, and Rob Brown, former world 18-foot skiff champion. The breeze has picked up for the 2nd race.
Certainly has. Sydney Harbour, a sea of wash here this afternoon. The run-out tide picking up the waves, very choppy, very difficult. Boat control very critical coming into this start.
Well, the Ukrainians look as though they want the start boat end. So too do the Budgeons, the McKee brothers and the Italians.
You can see the juggling of positions as they approach the start line.
Rob, that's the Ukrainians there, very close to the start boat, and they've just stalled there.
Looks like they're going to get squeezed out at that boat end. And there's a boat very early going forward. We've got the world champion, Chris Nicholson, sailing skilled. You can see one boat there diving out. He's miles too early, trying to pick a gap. He certainly is. He's found a gap. How did he do that? I don't know. With 15 to go, you can just see how close the Ukrainian boat is. You're going to have to tack out of there, or he's going to run into the committee boat. You're not allowed to do that. Very close to the line with 5 seconds to go. Both starting to accelerate now.
The Ukraine's in all sorts of bother there. The Budgeons were hampered.
So it's an individual recall. The McKees are there with tiller extension off. Something's gone wrong. That's very bad luck for them.
So that's a shocker there for the McKee brothers with that gear problem. And that's going to make life very difficult. Can Jonathan and Charles McKee recover? But on the left there, Adam Beashel away reasonably well. And the McKee brothers still wallowing.
I'd say there was contact between skiffs there. There was a big gaggle of boats at the committee boat end. As we have skilled, Chris Nicholson tacking, probably because he was getting gas. He hasn't been getting off the start line as well as what he would like. Coming across here to the right-hand side, looking for clear air and possibly looking for a bit of a wind shift. Coming across towards the Nielsen Park, the eastern shore of Sydney Harbour. The course, 900 metres top to bottom. Well, we've got the majority of the fleet coming in from the left-hand side, which is the top right-hand side of your screen. And at the bottom of your screen, you've got the guys who tacked out earlier across to the right-hand side of the course.
Okay, let's now go down on the water to Julian Bethwaite, who I think can update us with the woes of the McKee brothers, Jonathan and Charles.
Okay, the McKees have effected a repair. They've broken their tiller extension off the back, so they've got a bit of a disadvantage at the moment. Starting a bit late, but they're in the race, and let's see how they go.
Well, the McKees aren't enjoying it, but I think Julian is down there.
Yeah, great comments from Julian. He knows the harbour, he knows the boats, and he'll probably have some repair work tonight. But these boats coming in from the right-hand side of the course, this is the convergence at the top mark, and this really determines how you go in the race. It's how you fare around this top mark. Skilled coming across on starboard. All these skiffs coming from the top of the screen are on port. They've got to give way. Very close there between Skilled. Those boats can't tack. Beashel and Larson coming in. Larson will tack first. Beashel second. Will Skill lay. He's going to sneak round. Very tight lay with the tide running out, so it's going to help him very slow.
Ordino going straight round the outside though with acceleration. So too the Italians.
Skilled fourth, Italians fifth. Finlandia Vodka. Risto Tapper in sixth.
And also doing well, Great Britain 445, Adrian Stead and Seb Elliott.
Look at the convergence of that top mark. Unbelievable stuff. This is a great race as Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall lay down the gauntlet. The pedals down. They're probably reaching speeds up to 12, 13 knots as we have a capsized skiff here. So that's their race gone.
Two. Morgan Larson, he wants it. He's hungry. Beashel in his wake at the moment in second place as they surf down to the start-finish gate.
Very important to pick your jibe angle here.
Well, Julian Bethwaite, what a sight it is as they go past you.
Here comes the first jibe. Beachel's jibed on top of him. So we've just had the first jibe here. Morgan Larson once again is in the lead. Very good first leg. Beachel's tactically dropped on top of him, trying to cut off his wind and slow him down.
Well, that's exactly what happened, Julian and Rob, in the first race. On this downwind leg the first time, Adam Beashel was able to steal the wind of the Americans.
As the leading skiff jibes, it's very important that if you're right on the heels of that leading skiff, you've got to jibe simultaneously and hope that you do a better jibe so you can roll over the top and take their air. Now this is going to be the same situation here as they go down through the start-finish gate. You'll see as Morgan goes into the jibe, it'll be simultaneously jibed on the yellow spinnaker from Beashel. And it really comes down to the quality of crew work here. If you fluff the jibe, then you lose the lead instantly.
Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall again look as though they've had it snuck from under their noses by Adam Beashel and Teague Sislowski.
They certainly have. They've rolled over the top of the American crew, and now they'll be pulling down, trying to get down on the same line as the American crew. The disturbed air will force the blue spinnaker to sail higher, and they're going to have to jibe out of there. And simultaneous jibes. This is what all the training does, making sure that every manoeuvre is done perfectly, and two great jibes on the two leading skiffs.
The yellow spinnaker there of Adam Beashel, Morgan Larson the blue, and just behind them is Ordino of France, followed by Skilled Australia.
Interesting to see what they do at this bottom mark, the choice of two marks. Looks like they're both going to go for normal drops.
And the left-hand side of the course.
Interesting to see if Morgan was going to try and squeeze in there, but I think the Bichels had clear ahead, didn't have an overlap. So great recovery from Adam Bichel and Teague Siglowski down this first Spinnaker run.
Morgan Larson's tacked early, trying to use his long legs to try and outpace Bichel. And Bichel's just flopped what we call a loose cover on him, trying to control his position. Larson's just tacked back. You'll see that Bichel will go back fairly soon also. There he goes. This is what we call a loose cover. What you do by staying just to windward of the other boat is you try and control where they go and you try and control their speed.
How's that armchair going there, Julian? But certainly Adam Bichel and Morgan Larson. Australia versus the USA. It's match racing. Crew versus crew, boat on boat.
Covering, we look at it more as fleet positioning, putting ourselves between the rest of the fleet and the next mark is the best way to maintain your lead. They have to leapfrog you or jump over the top of you to get past you, so you stand well to keep in that position.
And both of these crews have certainly had a hell of a lot of match racing experience. Adam on board won Australia, Morgan Larson, a lot of match racing experience with the American teams, and it certainly is a battle royal out there on Sydney Harbour this afternoon.
Not to mention my co-commentator Rob Brown on Australia 2 in 1983. So the America's Cup spirit is out there. Skilled is back in 4th place at the moment. And the French Ordonneau in 3rd.
That is the difference, Gordon. You can get locked into a little battle between two 49ers, and while that's happening, the rest of the fleet is closing the gap on you. So you really have to keep your eyes and wits about you that you don't get locked into those little personal battles. But there's nothing in this race. See the crews there working the sheets. Morgan there steering around the waves, easing a bit of jib. Very bouncy conditions. We've got the tide running out, wind against tide, pushing up probably about a half to 1 metre wave pattern here on Sydney Harbour. As both skiffs now tack to go round the top mark for the second time. Nice tight bear away there by Adam Bichel. He wants to get low on the course, so he's got his option to jibe out when required. Great set there by Teague Siglowski. Let's watch the Americans.
And Skilled still on the lay line, coming into the top mark in 4th place behind the French. But Bichel and Morgan Larson off and running under their spinnakers.
Chris Nicholson didn't lose very much going out that right-hand side. Very close there between Silent Night Beds and the Italians. Skilled just round in front of these two skiffs. We're back with the leader.
A real lot of pressure. Adam Bichel and Teague Siglowski, the tax lawyer with Westpac. Well, it's all about peaking and fine-tuning and building up to Port Phillip Bay. That's where we'll see the 3rd World Championship for these 49ers, and here Chris Nicholson will be defending that world title, which he has won in Perth and also in France.
That jibe there, a little bit sloppy. This won't be giving Chris any joy at all. But I've raced against Chris many races in the 18-foot skiffs, and I know what a competitor he is, and there's no way we can ride him off at this time. I think he's probably having a mid-season slump.
So here's where the leaders are at the moment. They're jibing out to that right-hand side of the course.
Shark Island just off to the left. They'll be jibing very shortly down towards the bottom mark for the last time. And there's the jibe. There's the difference. That is a perfect classical jibe. The spinnaker just collapsing and popping out on the new side, and you can see the acceleration. If that spinnaker flaps and gets a little bit distorted through the jibe, boat slows down. And Adam Bichel was opened up probably about 2 or 3 boat lengths down here, and they seem to have, their technique downhill seems to be slightly better than the Americans. Going for the drop now, you can see Teague there pulling the spinnaker in as it gets sucked into the spinnaker tube. Nice rounding there, although the spinnaker's a little bit still out of that tube. Looks like they've got it under control now. Morgan Larson, Kevin Hall opting to follow Bichel out to that left-hand side of the course. That's a nice rounding.
Yes, well, Morgan Larson and also Bichel have been able to accelerate out of those mark roundings, and the French in third place, Skilled in fourth. The Italians are there in fifth, and Silent Night Bets in sixth place from New Zealand.
Bit of an early drop on Skilled. Probably wanted to have a nice tight rounding around that bottom mark so they can get up inside the French.
To last time.
And the Spinnaker drop now on the Italian skiff. Francesco and Gabriele Bruni going out to the left, as is Silent Night Beds in hot pursuit. Dan Slater and also Nathan Handley from New Zealand.
As there's a bit of a pile up here at the bottom mark, we have contact between two skiffs. Looks like there's a collision and a capsize.
Silent Night Beds left-hand side there has tacked and heading back up the middle of the course. Adam Bichel going right out to the left-hand side, taking full advantage, and now coming back on port tack.
Northeast sea breeze, 15 to 18 knots. That's the Bradley's Head shore in the background. Beautiful Sydney Harbour. This is going to be the battleground in 2000, and the Australians holding the whip hand at this point in time.
Well, we have three outstanding crews, Rob Brown. We have Chris Nicholson, the world champion, Adam Bichel, and also John and Gary Boyd, who haven't hit their straps so far in the Sydney regatta.
I think they're sailing very well. The only problem is there's a number of crews sailing that little bit better, a little bit faster. And what seems to be coming out of this racing is the ability to get out of the starts cleanly.
Okay, we've still got a battle happening here between Larson, who seems to have superior windward speed, and Bichel, who has far superior downwind speed. This time that Bichel has led Larson out to the northern side of the course, but at the moment he's let him go. He was controlling him quite well coming up the track, but now Larson is coming out to the southern side of the course to try and get that last-ditch effort to beat Bichel.
The French, Marc Ordonneau, the skipper, and they're in third place at the moment, Skilled in the background in fourth.
Well, these two skiffs believe that the breeze is coming down from that left-hand side of the course. So will the Americans have made a mistake here? The final beat to the finish, they don't have to win the race. You don't have to win each race to win the regatta. And this could be costly for the American crew.
Adam Bichel on Smith's Kodak Express. His crew Teague Sislowski complaining that he doesn't get enough time off work with Westpac to concentrate on his sailing, building up for the world titles. Maybe the boss might have something to say about that, Rob.
There certainly is, and the time that is involved in this sailing certainly does add up. And here we have the convergence that we're talking about. We have the yellow stripe on the leading skiff, Adam Bichel, and there's still nothing in this. Morgan Larson and Kevin Hall coming in. A very slow tack on the leading skiff. This is very exciting. It comes down to the spinnaker set, tactics, fitness, all that hard work.
Spinnaker set is good for Adam Bichel and Teague Sislowski.
Bit sloppy on the American crew. Leading boat accelerates away. That could be the race.
So now the Americans are in the attacking position here, Rob Brown. What options are open to them in this sprint to the finish?
This is a replay of the spinnaker set. You see Teague Sislowski in early. Great set. Got his weight out in the wire. A little bit sloppy. The spinnaker, sometimes water gets in that spinnaker and slows the spinnaker going up the mast, and that's the difference. You're probably looking at 2 or 3 second difference in spinnaker set, and that's all it takes in the high competition that we're looking at here this afternoon.
Ordonneau of France in third place ahead of Skilled Australia, but Morgan Larson just astern of Adam Bichel. The Australian skiff looks as though he's going to make it 2 out of 2 here on Sydney Harbour. Let's go to the front stalls with Julian Bethwaite.
We've got a real battle going on here. Larson has benefited a lot from that windward beat going to the south. You've got them coming into the finishing now. Larson's jibed early, hoping to get a squall to run him across the line. And there's only going to be about 2 or 3 seconds in this.
So who has the most pressure? This is desperately close, Rob Brown.
Well, I know the pressure's on both these skiffs, but the yellow spinnaker is closer to the line, and this has been a fantastic duel between these two guys.
Well, what a finish there for Adam Bichel. The Aussie skipper has made it 2 out of 2. Hotly pursued all the way by Morgan Larson. Skilled back in fourth place behind the French crew of Marc Ordonneau.
And the world champion, Chris Nicholson, trying to get ahead of the French here. He'll be looking around, trying to find that vital wind gust, and probably will try and do a An early jibe to try and roll over the French crew.
Marc Ardenot and Julien Bonarier, the French crew holding on by the skin of their teeth here.
This is where the crew work counts, but they're going to lay through. So the French crew will narrowly beat Chris Nicholson and Ed Smythe.
So 1 and 1 for Adam Bichel, 4 and 4 for the world champ Chris Nicholson in the first two races. And the Italians are going to come across in 5th place. That's Francesco and Gabriele Bruni ahead of Silent Night Beds, Dan Slater and Nathan Handley from New Zealand. There they are.
Dan has struggled a little bit to get up in the top places in this race. But certainly the competition has been thrown out by the Americans and the Australians. And here we have that vital overtaking manoeuvre by Adam Bichel. Their tactics were very sound in jibing simultaneously with Morgan Larson, and a little bit of superior boat speed, I think, on the downwind legs.
Well, the Americans certainly were very fast upwind, so we have a titanic struggle between these two top crews.
The boat speed around the course, though, negligible between these two great crews.
Let's check the results then of this second race. Adam Bichel, Australia. Morgan Larson, USA. Ordino of France. Chris Nicholson, skilled. Bruni, the Italian, in 5th ahead of Dan Slater. And GBR1, the Budgeons from Great Britain. Yes, a lot of those European crews struggling a little in the fresher conditions on Sydney Harbour. And so too the progressive results, and Adam Bichel, who won the first two regattas in Perth and Brisbane, leads the way from Morgan Larson. Chris Nicholson, the world champion, 3rd. Ordino France in 4th from the Italians. 205 is the McKee brothers. And the Boyd brothers in equal 11th place, not having a happy regatta. But the hot skipper is Adam Bichel.
We placed ourselves well around the course, got off the start lines quite well every time, which was a big winner for us in a fleet with this much talent and depth there. And just once again, you know, solid crew work from Teague the whole way around the track, as should be shown on the TV, with some, you know, really sweet bottom mark roundings that pulled us out of what could have been, you know, a uphill battle after that, tailing people round the marks to leading people round marks, and getting ourselves, you know, in a comfortable position again then to work with the rest of the race and work on the big picture and not get tied up with the small things of other boats.
Heaps of great action on the next episode of the Schneider 49er Series. And Melbourne will host the 99 World Sailing Championships down on beautiful Port Phillip Bay. From the 6th to the 17th of January, the world's best sailors will do battle for the sport's penultimate trophy in a timely lead-up to the Olympics. What a struggle it's going to be for that Olympic spot in 2000. More great action from Sydney Harbour next time.